Hello everybody, today we're going to start on Unit 7, which is polynomials. Yay! All this stuff pops up. Yay! It's so much fun when you're trying to record. Okay, so Unit 7, polynomials. This unit is, I don't want to say it's lengthy, but it kind of is compared to the last couple of units because not only is it a good amount of material. Well, it's actually not that much material, but we want to make sure we give enough time for it, so we will be spending a couple days on things. It also is falling at a weird time, like with English SOLs and stuff like that. So it will be a little prolonged, which you guys should think as a think of it as a benefit, because that means that you will have plenty of time to make sure you have the content down. And that's really important because you need this content in order to move into the next unit. Okay? So that was me rambling for an entire minute about why this is important. Let's do it. Okay, so polynomials, there are different kinds, but basically just generally polynomials are mathematical sentences. So it's math. They are expressions, not equations, so it's basically an expression. Typically, you're going to see polynomials with variables. Could have one variable, could have more than one variable. You'll also see a lot with exponents going on with those variables, so just be aware of it. But it's just an expression, basically. Now we're getting into more complicated expressions, where before you were seeing like one term with a variable and another term without. But now we're just making it a little bit more complicated for you. So there are different types of polynomials based on how many terms they have, and they have different names. Okay, so you will need to know what these these words mean, these classifications mean, because if they tell you something like solve the monomial or whatever, they're really talking about the polynomial, but they just have a specific name. So you need to be aware of these names. I will be asking you questions more like how many terms does this one have and what's it called based on that, just to make sure you guys are aware of it. But typically that's not going to be a question on like an SOL or you're going to see in the future. They'll just throw this verbiage at you and you need to be fully aware of what it means, so you're not like, oh crud, I don't know what that is. Okay, so you're going to copy down this chart, alright, and we're going to go ahead and get going with it. So a monomial is just a polynomial that has one term, okay? So some examples would be 3a to the fourth. Remember, terms are separated by addition or subtraction. So even if there's a whole bunch of things being multiplied together, that's all one term. So 3a to the fourth is one term. So xyz is one term because it's all multiplication there. 9 is a term. Those are all monomials. So if they tell you to multiply this thing with the monomial, they mean the single term, okay? A binomial is a mathematical sentence containing two terms. So basically a polynomial with two terms, all right? So 4x minus 5, that's a binomial because it's got two terms, 4x and negative 5. X squared plus 7, it's got two terms, x squared and 7. So also, I don't know if you guys noticed, but mono, you guys will hear like mono a lot as a prefix to words because mono means one. I always get called out because I always say like, oh, mono means one-on-one, but really it's mano something. It's in Spanish, it means hand-to-hand, so I already know, you don't have to comment, it's fine. Mono in Latin means one. It's not the word for one, but it does mean one. Bi is the prefix that means two. So like bicycle means two wheels, biped means walks on 2 feet, kind of stuff. So for mono, like monocle, I don't know if any of you guys know what a monocle is, but it's that one like only half of the glass is like a little circle like the Monopoly guy wears. That's a monocle. So that's monomials and binomials. Trinomials is a polynomial with three terms. So an example would be negative 2x cubed is one term, 4x and negative 11 is another term. So It's got 3 altogether. Remember that because tri means 3, like triangle, triceratops, tricycle. There's other tries I can't think of. Anyway. So those are the 3 very specific ones based on how many terms it is. After we get that, if we get more than 3, I don't know why it doesn't have a 3 right there, but oh well. Write a 3 at the end of this. We just call it a polynomial if it's got more than 3 terms, because we could come up with names for it, but that's super complicated, and why do that? So, we have a mathematical sentence containing more than 3 terms. So an example, you got y cubed minus 4y squared plus 8y minus 15. That's 4 terms right there. You will need to know how to classify them by terms. I'm telling you that now. It's going to be on your test. It's going to be on your quiz. Got to do it. Okay? So make sure you know what these are based on how many terms they have. Yes, you will need to know the words. Okay. The next vocab, most of these notes are vocab, sorry. Degree of a monomial, or degree of a term. Okay? So, if I ask you what's the degree of this term, it's just taking the sum of the exponents in the term. So, even if you have 2 different variables and they have 2 different exponents going on within that one single term, you have to add those exponents together. I know they're not for the same variable. It's okay. You add the exponents together, and that tells you the the degree of the term, or the monomial. So here's an example. This is a monomial because we're not adding or subtracting anything. Okay, we have 3x to the 5th plus y squared. So 2 different variables. We're taking the degree of the variables only. Okay, so we're going to take these 2 numbers, these 2 exponents, and we're going to add them together. So 5 plus 2 is 7. That means the degree of the monomial, that term, is 7. Okay? And the reason we take degrees is to help us classify things. Like, there's another classification based on their degrees. And it also helps us put it in standard form, which I'll show you in a second. Okay? Now, for a degree of a binomial, trinomial, or polynomial, where you have multiple terms in that one polynomial, it's the highest degree of all the terms within that thing that wins. Okay? So here's an example. We have a binomial here. We have 3x to the 5th y squared plus 9 x to the 9th. Okay? We're going to take the degree of each term, and then whichever one is highest is the degree of our binomial. Okay? So this guy we already found, the degree was 7. Okay, this guy has only got 1 exponent, so that one has a degree of 9. Now, we have 7 and 9. 9 is higher, so 9 is going to be the representative for the degree of this binomial. The degree of the binomial is 9. Okay? You don't add these 2 together. You just take the biggest one and say that's the degree of the whole thing. Okay? Do I have anything else? Quickie? No? Cool. Now, classifying by degree is a little bit, not more complicated, but there's some words that, like, I'm introducing to you, but I don't expect you to have memorized, and that's okay. Alright, there are 3 that you definitely should have memorized, and you probably already know these terms, like what they're called, but make sure you do know them. So, you're going to copy down this chart. If something has a degree of 0, meaning there's no variables, it's called a constant. Okay? So, that's when there's no variables, it has a degree of 0. And we call it a constant. Again, this is one you should already know. Now you know it has a degree of 0. Okay? An example would just be the number 7. Okay? If the polynomial has a degree of 1, it is called a linear polynomial. So, for example, x plus 3, because this looks like a linear equation. Okay? There's no exponent there, but really it has an invisible 1. So the degree is 1. It's called linear. That one you should know. Quadratic is a new one that we haven't really introduced, but you will need to know by the end of the year because we're doing quadratics next. Quadratics have a degree of 2. Okay, so their highest degree is 2, like here. This is what a quadratic equation will look like. Alright? These next 3, I don't expect you to have memorized. Like, be able to, like, oh, that's a cubic thing, because these are 3 that you will be introduced to in Algebra 2. Constant, linear, and quadratic, you need to know for Algebra 1. So you should know what this these terms mean. Like a quadratic means it has a degree of 2. Okay, where linear means it has a degree of 1. And you should also know what they look like on a graph. Linear is a line. We'll learn what a quadratic looks like next class. Where a constant is just a horizontal or vertical line. Okay? But if it has a degree of 3, it's cubic, because 3 is the highest degree. Degree of 4 is quartic, like a quarter. Has the highest degree is 4. And quintic has a degree of 5. Its highest degree is 5. Okay? So again, these not so much, these definitely, these are not new vocab words for you, for algebra. Alright, so standard form, the whole reason we need to know degrees is because of standard form. When we have only one variable going on, so like all the terms have x's or no variable at all, the terms should be ordered by their degree. So highest degree in the front and lowest degree in the back. Okay? If they have more than one variable, which you're not going to see, but it can happen, okay, you would do it, you would just pick a variable, like the x's, whatever variable you have, and put it in order by that one variable, rather than trying to like find the highest degree of both variables. It kind of gets a little messy. So just stick with one variable and put that one in order from highest degree to lowest degree. Okay? Here's an example of standard form, because if you take the degree of each term, they're actually in order. So the degree of the first one is 7, degree of the second one is 5, 4, 1, because it's got an invisible 1 here, and the constant is 0. Okay, so it goes in order from greatest to least. So this is standard form. The leading coefficient is the coefficient in the front of the polynomial when it's in standard form. When it's in standard form. Okay, so because this one's in standard form, the coefficient in the front would be the one with the highest degree. The leading coefficient would be 4. Okay? This will be on your quiz for sure. This is like the first 2 questions. Being able to put something in standard form and identify the leading coefficient. Now, adding, subtracting polynomials. I'm going to go through this kind of quick because it is very much review for you. Okay? Adding, subtracting polynomials is just combining like terms. The ones that have the same variable and the same exponent. So this is kind of new to you, where they have the same exponent. We just go ahead and combine the coefficients. That's all adding and subtracting polynomials is. Okay, so here's an example. We need to simplify this. So they will typically put the polynomials that you're adding together in parentheses, just so you know this is the first polynomial, this is the second one. Okay? With adding, it doesn't really make a difference. You could lose them as soon as you get them. With subtracting, it will make a difference, and I'll show you before you do your try on your own. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and lose it and write it out. So it's 3x squared plus 4x minus 3 plus 4x squared minus 8x minus 9. So now I'm just going to combine like terms. I've got 3x squared, and I have another x squared, 4x squared here. So those get combined to create 7x squared. I have a positive 4x and a negative 8x, so different than the x squareds because they don't have the exponent. But I can combine these two. 4x plus negative 8x gives me negative 4x. And then negative 3 and negative 9 can be combined together, because they're both constants, gives me negative 12. Okay? You should always make sure your answer is in standard form. So when you add them all together, like find the degrees and make sure they're in the right order. So this one has a degree of 2, this one has a degree of 1 and 0. They're already in order from greatest to least. So my final answer is 7x squared minus 4x minus 12. That's it. Okay? Now you guys are going to try this one on your own, but here's where you have to be careful with subtraction. Okay? You have to be very, very careful. This is your first polynomial and you are subtracting the second one. You must distribute this negative to the second one. So you're going to have to multiply the negative 5r cubed by negative 1, the r by negative 1, the 8 by negative 1. Okay? Make sure you distribute, and then you go ahead and combine like you were with the adding. Okay? But you have to distribute first. That is where subtracting is a little bit different than adding. Okay? But other than that, that's it. If you guys have any questions, please write them down. We will be going over this next class, and that's all I got for you. Bye!